Hey, welcome back. Okay, here's my question for you today. What's your story? I'm going to tell you that the people we have today, they have a story too. And they have a program called What's Your Story? You're going to love what you hear today. My name is Dacquino. Our guests are Marsha, Norma, and Eileen. Hello, ladies. Welcome.
Hi, Vinny.
You have a program coming at Tompkins Corners. I need to know all about Tompkins Corners, and I need to know all about this program that you're doing. Marsha, talk to me.
Well, I'll talk to you about What's Your Story, which
Okay.
is the program. I'm the producer. Maybe Eileen will fill us in a little bit later about Tompkins Corner.
Okay.
Just to say, it's a cultural center. It's a performance space. So, what's my story, and why that? Well, I believe deeply that stories are primary form of communication.
Oh, yeah.
And our oldest art form. And interestingly, in the last decade or so, there's been a lot of interest again in spoken word as an art form. So that's, all sorts of things, poetry and rap and personal stories have become hugely popular. There is a program that our program is modeled after called The Moth, and they've been around for about 10 years. They are all true personal stories as remembered by the performer and performed live without notes.
Whoa.
And so you got to know your story.
Yeah, you got to know your story, and you got to be ready and careful about what you're about to say.
So, the reason I think stories are so important is it's how we share who we are.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of benefits that come from that. If you might feel so alone in something, you might be experiencing something and you just feel like nobody else on earth knows what this is like.
Mm-hmm. Or cares.
But then somebody shares their story and you discover, oh, I'm not alone. There are other people who are going to understand.
Yeah.
And my life can be better because if I open myself up to other people, I don't have to suffer through this alone. Another reason I think that stories are really important is that we all live in our own bubble.
Mm-hmm.
We have sometimes very limited views of the world. And when we share our stories, we get to open up and broaden that and get a better understanding of one another. And I think a perfect example, I grew up in the city. To me, there was nothing good about guns. Guns meant danger, violence, crime. That I knew nothing else about guns than that. But my next door neighbor, his name's Alfonso, and his story is he grew up on a farm in Italy. And now when he goes out to hunt, he connects with nature. He connects with, respectfully with the animal that he plans to eat. And he feels that's a more natural animal and a more natural food. And so he completely changed my understanding. It's like I was always like, guns, hunting, terrible. But
Yeah.
once I knew his story, it's like, wow, here's a completely different way to look at that. So what we're going to be doing at this performance, I wanted to add another thing about that. It's like, well, I'm an educator and a writer. And one of the things that I learned when I was in graduate school is the power of stories.
Yeah.
If you're trying to teach somebody something and you give them a bunch of facts, there's a good chance they're just going to forget it. if you put that information in the context of a story,
You know, there's a little known book that does that. I think it's called The Bible. I mean, that is what the Bible does. You have all of these wonderful parables, and they tell stories that are to teach you something about something. It's filled with that. It's you know, you're talking about going to the basics.
so you know, honestly, the program "What's Your Story" is more about sharing and entertainment.
Yeah.
I can promise you, after our first workshop, that we're going to have some very entertaining stories.
I could imagine.
And because I want people exposed to different points of view, get out of your bubble,
Yep.
I made a real effort to select people from different walks of life.
Wow.
So
So what you get?
and it was really funny because we're going through our workshops and exploring, you know, story ideas. So we've got this big strapping guy who's a firefighter who had also been in the Navy.
Oh, wow.
And I know him because he's a neighbor, and he's got little kids. They're wonderful. So our activity was you had to draw a theme out of a hat and come up with a 3-minute story. So what does he get? Defiance.
Oh.
So you think that this big strapping guy, Navy, firefighter, he's going to come up with some powerful story. No, his story was about his 7-year-old daughter who
Was defiant.
comes out ready
know
for
that.
school wearing her big sister's underwear.
Okay.
and defiantly insists that that's how she's going to school. So his story, instead of like the brave story you might have expected from the firefighter, was about the defiance of a 7-year-old
Being a father.
and fatherhood.
We wear so many roles and so many hats that it's interesting to see which ones people embrace. Now this guy, instead of embracing his firefighting life, he embraced one that really matters, his fatherhood. And that doesn't surprise me at all. In fact, I'm actually proud of him.
I am too, and then we have another young man who's recently out of the Navy and is going to John Jay and to study criminal justice.
Oh boy.
I don't know what kind of stories we're going to have because a lot of the things he experienced in the Navy, he's not allowed to speak about.
Oh, yeah.
Then
I know exactly who you're talking about.
I'm not mentioning some names because I didn't ask permission.
Yeah. No, I hear you.
But Victor Moore, he's going to have some great stories.
Victor Moore is such an amazing man. He was part of our writing group, the Madpack Writers, for a long time, and some of the things that he produced were just magnificent. And especially in terms of music, I mean, he is so talented.
So Victor, he told us a story. Victor is a musician, a music producer, and a video producer.
Yep.
And he told us a story. He's an African American, grew up in Baltimore, and he's out on the road with his band, and one of his first experiences in a place, I don't know, something like Lincoln, Nebraska, or someplace smaller near there, right?
Yeah.
And they'd performed, and but it was a bunch of African Americans, and it was a very Caucasian part of the world.
Oh, wow.
So they finished their show, they get in their van, and somebody's like rapping at the door and rapping at the door and rapping at the door, and they're like, oh no.
Yeah.
And they're like, we gotta get out of here. And they keep rapping at the door and rapping at the door. And finally, they get in and said, "You've got your wallet."
All these fears and anticipations. And
So that's what I mean. It's like, well,
Yeah.
where you come from,
Yeah.
you have a certain set
you
of.
bring with you your baggage. You know, you bring with you what you've learned, what you've seen, what you know, and where you grew up, when you grew up, how you grew up, all has an influence on who you are.
So then I think we'll have a very different kind of story from Dave Hull, who is, he's a horticulturist. He is so in touch with nature. You know, he just like, any plant, you walk down the road with him and it's like, oh, here's this and here's that. And he creates through horticulture.
Wow.
And through music, and as a poet, and he shared a story about friendship with us. Kim Chun Levin, which I think a lot of people in the community know her. She's a well-loved yoga teacher and natural healer who also has she came from South Korea a long time ago, but she has a history as a nurse and a nurse manager, and the story she shared with us had to do with walking across the rice fields and encountering, as a little girl, and encountering a snake. And so you know, she brings her whole her culture and her worldview. And then I'm fortunate that we have Norma and Eileen, who are among the performers,
So they're going to tell us a little bit about.
Well, I asked them to share why they wanted to do this.
Thank you for having us over. And I think every human being is full of hundreds of stories. And that's what it builds our characters and who we are. I was asked by Marsha, obviously, we are friends, and then I asked myself, what am I supposed to tell? How am I going to structure a story? And then you start asking yourself many questions, but something that is satisfied my hesitations of taking this initiative or accepting this role was the fact that she will be coaching us through last night workshop, which is the basically she broke into 4 different workshops, 2 hours each workshop. And meeting after work yesterday, we all were tired, but at the same time I felt the energy, I felt that the connection among all the participants and the different backgrounds. We are all local. We are members of the community, and we have different roles, and hopefully we can structure something beautiful, something very unique that it concerns to our stories, and share it with the rest of the public. And that's I think is something beautiful.
Yeah, it is something beautiful. It gives us a chance to define who we are, and to talk about the things that are meaningful to us. And I love the whole idea and the opportunity to have people, when people hear your stories, they understand their own, and it helps them get in touch with themselves. So I think it's a great thing. How long have you been involved in this? Is this all relatively new?
This is new to me, and as I said, as I want to reiterate something, beyond Marsha, and I'm like structuring myself how to convey our self stories. There is a piece that I know that it relieves myself, and I am very happy to be able to not just to share, but also to help a non-for-profit organization that will hope to get a good crowd and locally and support the initiative.
Good. Great. Marsha, how many people are actually involved in the program?
There'll be 8 performers.
8 performers.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, including myself, and Eileen is one of them, and Eileen is such a leader in the community. She is a civic leader, and one of the reasons I admire Eileen so much is that she has had a career in environmental engineering.
Whoa.
Which I thought was an incredibly brave thing for a beautiful young woman to be doing. And she had a long career in that field and worked her way up, and in a man's world. It is very much a man's world.
Tell me
and
about it.
I think Eileen's going to bring us some wonderful stories.
I've been living in the Sybil Ludington world, and man, I'm learning a whole lot of things about women and their fight to be recognized. It's just amazing. Eileen, talk to us.
Well, let's see. When Marsha brought this up, I thought, and she brought it up to the group in Tompkins Corners, not necessarily to me, and I thought, oh, that is a great idea. I've listened to the Moth program on NPR. I think it's a great event, whether it's on the radio or whether it's at Tompkins Corners, just to hear people stand up and talk about their stories. But I thought, I don't think I can do that. So as much as I'm involved in my community and with different organizations, I've never considered sharing my stories to others. And so I started thinking about it, and I thought, well, what could I talk about? And I realized I have so many stories. I've lived, quite a while.
Every day of our lives is part of the book of our lives.
Yeah.
Every day.
Yeah, and some are unique, and some are interesting, and some
are not. Well,
exactly. So I'm still not clear, certain as to what story I will tell. But I have a laundry list at this point, and just that has brought me out of my little bubble. Realizing that I do have some things that people would be interested in hearing, some stories that are good. So I'm really looking forward to it. I'm excited about it. And the workshop, I don't think I would be doing it without the workshop. So Marsha ran the first workshop last night. She was fabulous. And I think she knows how to get us to the point where we can stand up there on October 5th, correct date? And be interesting and entertaining, so I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. So am I. I certainly am going to try to be there.
Should we talk about the workshops a little bit?
Yeah, do that.
So I really wanted this to be a performance. Sometimes there's a format where you just declare a theme and you invite people in the audience to participate in it, but we're not doing that. Okay. I wanted people to really shape their stories and perform them in a little bit more formal way. So there's 4 workshops. The first one that we just had was to explore story ideas, and that included pull a theme out of a hat and give us a 3 to 5 minute story about love, fear, friendship, the big themes in life. Next time, we'll work on sequencing and how to create a story that moves forward, and how to create suspense and interest. And a story has to have a beginning, middle, and end. And you don't want to
a little hook there.
Hook it in and wrap it up. Don't leave people floating away. The third will focus on our performance abilities, on starting to become comfortable with using a mic and standing on a stage and getting it out there and varying your voice and making it interesting. Although it was very clear last night that at least a couple of people have theater experience. We've got a couple of experienced performers among the group. And then our last one will be a rehearsal, it's being comfortable with the theater technology, the lights and the mic, And we have to figure out a little bit, just like in that venue, how to let people be, our performers be heard and seen, but not disconnected from the audience, because this is a two-way thing. It's not, you know, you don't want to be remote from your audience. I think you put up the poster and you sort of like get that feeling of like a group of people together. And even though we're in a theater, we want that feeling of a group of people together. So that's the workshop.
How many minutes will each performer get?
Right, so it's, you know, you put it together, you do the math. The show starts at 7:30. We got to be out of there by 10. There's a half-hour intermission. There's, you know, you need 5 minutes for you know, opening remarks and of course time for applause between.
Yeah, of course.
It's like, so I've kind of figured it out to. We max out at about 8 minutes. If you know, if there's somebody who...
And 8 minutes could be a lifetime.
It's correct. It is a lifetime.
Yeah, it could be.
Or it can go,
yeah,
you know,
it flies.
or
just like the show,
flies.
you know. People come on the show and they say, how long do we have? And I say, 28 minutes. And they go, is that enough? Or some say, 28 minutes? What am I going to say?
That was my thought, yeah.
And then before you know it, the stage manager is putting up a placard that says 1 minute left. So we're flying through right now.
So that's one of the things we do during our, you know, our workshops and our, you know, our mini performances is like, you know, it's like you know, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, wrap it up, you know.
I do the writers' workshop, and we had to go to a clock because people go, what? I've only been doing this for 2 minutes. And they say, no. 6 minutes, the bell rang.
That's the way to do it, yeah.
You know, and that's, so we had to do it because we were getting fights. People just didn't realize how quickly it went. And when you're absorbed and you're into what you're doing, it flies even faster.
Like life.
Yeah. Now, your venue is the Tompkins Corners. Tell me a little bit about Tompkins Corners. I spoke there recently. I just cannot believe the performers that have been going there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really an exciting venue right in Putnam Valley, which is my town.
Yeah. And I know Judy Allen's been very involved.
Well, Judy and others are the founding members.
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure what the relationships are, but
they make it work.
For years, I drove past there. The church was abandoned, and I would look at it and think, "Oh, what a beautiful building! God, it would be wonderful to have a music venue there." And then one day I was driving by with my partner Dave, and we were going kayaking, and we saw people in the parking lot. So we made a U-turn, pulled in, and got to see the interior of the church. And what was happening is they were deconsecrating, and I think that's the correct word, the church.
Wow.
And it had been for sale, and now this event was taking place, so I thought, oh, maybe somebody has bought it. But there were many people who had were parishioners there, and they all spoke. And David Amram was supposed to speak.
Oh, yeah,
he was one of the locals who went to that church, used that church, but he was at the Clearwater that day and wasn't able to make it.
Oh.
But we enjoyed the ceremony, and then everybody left, and I still didn't know what happened. And then maybe a year or two later, a local group of musicians, Judy Allen is one of them, got together and opened it as a cultural center. And the first event we went to, John Cohen, who is a neighbor, I think he lives across the street there. He was from the Lost City Ramblers, if you remember that group. So he's still there, he still performs there. But the first night he did a film on Putnam Valley from the 70s, I think. And it's just evolved from there. We have musicians coming from the city, we have local musicians, writers, artists. Tai Chi is taught there, poetry.
Wow.
Now we have the storytelling group. We have painting performed. So it's a real cultural center.
I know the famous Irish novelist
Oh, they're coming. Malachi.
Yeah, Malachi.
McCourt and,
McCourt. Oh my
yeah.
God! I got to see his brother.
You did.
In Philadelphia. I went to a workshop there, and his brother was there. Now I listened to every single one. Angela's Ashes.
Yeah.
All their books on tape. When it was an hour to get to work every morning.
Yeah.
So I would listen to books on tapes.
Yeah.
I listened to all of theirs. I
Yeah.
was so taken. And I said, oh my God, I can't believe they have.
So that's coming
Yeah.
up, and the best way to find out what's coming up is to go to tompkinscorners.org.
Tompkinscorners.org. There it is on the screen.
And you'll find all the upcoming events.
So many things that happen.
Yeah. Weekly.
It truly is a cultural corner.
It is.
So we'll be there October 5th, which is a Saturday, 7:30.
We look forward to seeing you there.
Tickets are very reasonable, $15
Yep.
for regular
And
tickets.
Tompkins
seniors
Corners
and
is a nonprofit.
not-for-profit, yes.
That's good.
Right.
Bringing culture to the people. Well, I am pleased with all of you because you are reaching into yourself and sharing that with others and helping them to understand who they are. I wish you the best of success. I will try to be there. Unfortunately, that's my mother's birthday.
Oh,
She'll be 93 years old.
Birthday.
you're
but
a
we're not
lucky
sure.
man.
We're going to celebrate it, but maybe not on that day. So if it's not
Hopefully
on
you
that
can
day,
come.
I
Or
might
Or
be
maybe
able
not
to
in the
get there.
evening, yeah. If you're
Yeah.
93, they
Well,
like
But
afternoons.
she's all the way up in Utica, New York. So
Oh, that's a
so it's
journey.
a little bit of a
Yeah, yeah.
So in any case, if I can't be with you, my spirit certainly will. I know this is going to fly. I know people are going to love this. So keep on keeping on. Keep on doing what you're doing. Any last minute things you'd like to say out there?
Hopefully we can prepare something beautiful and fun and entertaining for all our public, and please come and support not just us, the program, but also Tompkins Corner, who, what you mentioned, is a cultural coalition that have embraced many of us in the community.
Absolutely. So, thank you for tuning in today. Thank you for being part of What's Your Story? And Marsha, thank you. Norman, thank you. Eileen, thank you.
Thank you.
And
Thank you,
audience,
Vinny.
thank you.